Hello, everyone. Hey, everyone. We've got 47 people watching. That's a new record for me. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Hello to all the new followers. I've had it looks like nearly 100 new followers overnight because I posted about this. So thanks, everyone, for following. That is very kind of you. Hello, everyone saying hi in the chat. It's good to see you all. Beast Coast, thank you for the follow just then. Sean Wasabi, thank you for the follow. How are you? Good to see everyone here. So yeah, today we are going to be looking at the project file for my song, Auto. Let me know in the chat how the audio and the video is looking. I think I managed to fix most of the problems from the last stream. There shouldn't be any more issues anymore. So yeah, let me know how it goes. If there's anything that needs fixing, I will try to do so. Shimmer Tops, thank you for the follow. Rich Ellis, thank you for the follow. Alias Falcon, thank you for the follow. So yeah, we're about to dive in. This is only my third Twitch stream ever, but you got to start somewhere, I suppose. But yeah, so I guess let's switch over to my Ableton. And I've got the project file right here. This is Auto. I guess we'll start by just having a listen. I'm just going to hit play. And also in the chat while it's playing, let me know if there's anything in particular you'd like me to cover. There's a lot that we could go into depth with. So yeah, if there's anything specific you'd like to know, let me know in the chat. All right, here we go. Auto. Soltis Beats, thank you for the follow.
Make a hit, yeah, automatic bass drum. This is fun, yeah, supersonic feeling this. It's a hit radiation makes you automatic, automatic. Break it out, make it count, yeah, automatic. This is it, benefit, hypersonic on the radio. Now the show, every day you'll be automatic, automatic, yeah, automatic. Felix that, break the fabric, automatic. Make a habit, automatic. Be emphatic, don't panic, automatic. Feel the heat, a million miles a second in the front seat. Automatic, telepathic, can't be verified. To the right, information will be automatic. Felix that, break the fabric, automatic. Make a habit, automatic. Be emphatic, don't panic, automatic.
There it is. That's Auto. The Meneth, thank you so much for the follow. Oh, look at all these messages. You guys are so sweet. Yeah, so I guess that's the whole song. I'm gonna go into like in depth into the different parts, I suppose. I'll have a look at what you guys have been saying and sort of try to cover everything. So I think there's about 100 layers all up in the song, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually, when they're all like grouped together and you think about them in like compositional parts, it's actually quite a simple song. There's not that many parts. The different layers are just like, one layer might just be like one tiny little sound, and then it's combining with a bunch of other tiny little sounds to make one bigger sound. So even though there's 100 different tracks, there's actually not that many, like, I guess, stems. I don't know how you describe it. When did you add the guitar, asks Shimeratops. Or Chimeratops, I think it's pronounced. I mean, I've been playing guitar since I was like 12 years old, but in this song, I added the guitar solo right at the end. When the song was nearly done, I was like, I need like an instrumental break to divide the verses up. So I decided to add the guitar solo. Yeah, so people are asking, like, you want to see the wet lasers and that crunchy rise before the finale? Yeah, I'm definitely going to show that, all the sound design, all that stuff. Oni Bure, thank you for the follow. So to answer that question actually right now, Divorce Papers asks, would love to see those wet lasers and that crunchy riser before the finale. Yeah, so, well, the wet lasers are just this in this sound effects group here. So I've kind of roughly grouped all the sounds together. Let's have a look. Let's play it. This is the pew pew laser sound. And that just kind of goes percussively throughout the whole song. And it's literally just one note being played. It's like a serum thing with a big pitch envelope on it. It's just a square wave with a big, this one envelope that's controlling like a bunch of different parameters. So it's got like pitch and then effects parameters and all this. So you can kind of see as it plays all the different things that are being modulated, but it's all the same envelope, so all the modulation is happening in the same shape. So it kind of just creates this sort of quick swoopy sound, and I just used that as like almost like a percussion element. And then the other part you asked about was this like riser in the thing. So this is like kind of where the name of the song comes from. It sounds a bit like an auto like engine thing. So that's one of the first sounds I created for the song. That was like the conceptual basis for how this song started. And it's kind of a complicated, like distorted sort of synth patch. So the synth patch itself is just like a bunch of crazy, like detuned sine waves with a filter and then a bunch of distortion and width on it. And you can kind of see, sorry if my face is in the way of the synth patch, I'll try and move it out into here. And then like follow that by like, I've got Isotope Trash doing a bunch of distortion on it. And then, EQing all out the sides and then like multi-band compress and just a bunch of stuff. And then this LFO tool is like ducking it in time with the beat. So yeah, it sounds like an engine, kind of like a swirling engine sound. It's pretty cool. What else are people wanting to see? Distorted bass stabs before the whoa-ohs in the intro. Yeah, that's a good question. So we've got a lot of the sounds and the percussion sounds were already sort of made before I started the production, and I'm going to do another video about like how I make drum sounds and like samples and all that kind of stuff. But that you just sort of have to take for granted that I have made a bunch of sounds that I use, that I have available to me. But to answer your question, before the whoa-ohs, there's this little... Yeah, that's like a really cool, like, dirty bass. Yeah, that's a sound that I made. So, this is the sample here. Yeah, it's like a sample that I made using a plugin called Kick 2, which is what I use to make a lot of kick drum sounds and other like bass sounds. But I distorted the hell out of it, and then I did some parallel processing on it and like distorted the top and low end differently and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's extremely distorted. And then and then for the mix here, I've chucked some pretty intense OTT just to make it like sit better. The chords you'd like to see in the progression. Yeah, I'm going to go over the chords too. And yeah, the vocal processing. Not Falcone asks about the vocal processing. Hopefully I'm not missing anything. I'm just going to quickly scroll through the chat. Yeah, and I'll also try to cover like how I did the guitar and stuff like that. So chords. Let's look at the chords. Yeah, there's a few different chord layers. The main one, actually, the chords are quite simple in this song. Let's have a look.
Counterfeit, make a hit. Yeah, automatic bass drum. This is fun. Yeah, supersonic feeling this. It's a hit. Radiation makes you automatic, automatic.
Yeah, so I've just soloed the chords group. This group has like all the chords and arpeggios and like melodic content in it. So there's the, I mean, I've frozen a lot of it just for CPU. I'll unfreeze some of it now so that we can have a better look. Let's unfreeze this one, and this one. Hopefully it won't destroy my CPU, but I think we should be okay. So this is like the main sort of synth chord patch that I use throughout the song. And it's layered, and I'll go through the different layers that kind of combine. This is an extremely simple sound. It's literally like a sine wave with a few added harmonics in Serum. Sorry, again, I'll move it into the thing. Just like very simple sort of sine-ish wave. And then there's an LFO on the amplitude. So it's literally just like a volume amplitude LFO. And then I've EQ'd the bottom and top. And then I've got a neutron here. In case you don't know, neutron is like a channel strip processor, good for like mixing and stuff. And I've just sort of EQ'd it dynamically and then put a little tiny bit of subtle like saturation on the top end. But yeah, that's it. That's like so simple. And it's just like the chord voicings are kind of what make it magical. And then when you layer in the other stuff too, so. So that's the kind of where the magic happens. It's like I've got this omnisphere, I'll just quickly check what people are saying. Can you create that bass with smoother waves? Could sit there better, but that's just my opinion. Fair enough. I mean, the whole idea of that sound was to be distorted and abrasive, but yeah, I understand what you mean. Let's see. Yeah, so we've got these omnisphere layers. I mean, I use omnisphere sometimes. I mainly only ever use it for the actual sample libraries that are in it. In particular, the vocal stuff is really cool. So in this instance, I'm using, let's see. This one is the pop combo male and female ooze. It's literally just like really well recorded choirs, like background vocal pops vocals. And then that is also later in the song layered with another omnisphere vocal patch, which is I think the jazz doots. Jazz stacks doot accent. So basically I haven't really done anything to those. I've just loaded them up and played chords in them. So yeah, keep it simple. Emotion TV asks, how long have I been using Ableton? Since I was about 16, and I'm 28 this year, so like over 10 years, 11 years, something like that. Lucky Mac asks, do you mix and master your own stuff? Pretty much yes. I used to mix and master everything I do. Now I do have a professional mix and master sort of go-to team who I use. So I'll do like the rudimentary mixes myself. Like I'll do everything until I can't do any more, and then I'll send it off for like a bit of just like polish, because I don't have particularly good speakers here. So I'll send it off to someone who has better speakers than me to like just make sure everything is okay, and then I'll get it mastered professionally. So I used to do everything myself, but it's nice to be able to have a second and third pair of ears to help to get things sounding a little bit more professional. The choir is sick. Yeah, man. The Omnisphere choirs are the best. I use them all the time. You chucked me. Oh man, thank you for the cash, Oni Bure. That's very, very sweet of you. That is my first ever donation, and I really greatly appreciate that. So thank you so much for that. Doot. Yeah, man, the doots. It's all about the doots. And then what the cool stuff is when it's all layered together. So you've got the sine wave wobble chords, you've got the two choirs, and then this like Serum synth up, which I'll go into in a second. then of course with the bass underneath. So the synth that you just heard, this like little rave up synth thingy, that's just like a pretty simple, like, you know, got some saw waves over in Serum, bit of dimension and bit of compression, and just some envelopes on the pitching and the detune, and then a tiny little filter cutoff automation, and it just comes together nicely. It's meant to sound like abrasive and like trumpety, so and yeah, a bit of side chaining on there too. Oh, actually I think maybe this, oh no, yeah, that's just like side chaining, and then a bit of EQ, whatever. So pretty simple stuff. That up kind of comes back later in a different form here. That's kind of what I use in the build-up and the end section, but it's a little bit more processed, I think, but essentially exactly the same sound. So layering is your thing, I see. Yeah, I suppose. That's cool you do your own sound design. Yeah, I do pretty much everything myself in terms of sound design. Rich Ellis asks, do you use many visual analyzers to help you get the levels right? I use just like the Ableton Spectrum Analyzer a lot. I'm just used to the way it looks, so I could get a pretty good idea of like whether my bass is too loud or whatever, but I use my ears mostly. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. Yes, you're right about the bass being distorted after the smooth parts. It's meant to be like a little bit of a dichotomy between the two textures. Thank you, Sparbs, for the lovely comment. Love the synth trumpet. Yeah, Hudmo Kick. That's just called, the project is originally called Hudmo Kick because I was trying to make a kick that sounds like a Hudson Mohawk kick, and then it took on a life of its own, I suppose, and that bears absolutely no resemblance to what I actually ended up making. So that's how it goes. How are you making those super wet sounds? Maybe be a little more specific which sound you're talking about, and I can try to show you. But yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep going. What do we got? So this build up. It's like the simplest build-up I've ever made. It's literally like 2 layers. So we've got that rave up thing that I just showed you, which is a very simple synth patch. And then I made a really cool bass sound in FM8, which I used in the build-up and end sections of this song. And we can have a look at that too. So, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to get into the guitar sound. That'll be the next thing I show you. I can show you like how I process the guitars and like how I recorded them and stuff. Yeah, I'm going to try and answer all your questions too. It's just there's a lot of people asking stuff and I want to cover as much as I can. So yeah, let's keep going. So the FM8, if you're not familiar, FM8 is a FM synth by Native Instruments. It's a frequency modulation synthesis. So that's similar to like the Yamaha DX7 and that kind of stuff. It's digital, and it's a specific type of synthesis that uses what they call frequency modulation, which instead of modulating like a filter or a whatever else it might be, what they use is modulation at the rate of pitch or audio frequency. So like that's extremely fast. So like you have to know a little bit about how audio sound waves work and stuff, and like what frequency and pitch is, and all that kind of stuff. But basically it's a specific type of synthesis that uses frequency modulation to get extremely textural and very like unique metallic glassy bell sounding kind of stuff. Yeah, and so I used this synth to create this sort of sound. It's filtering up through the build, and then it's sort of, so you can see the audio filter cut off there. I'll skip forward a little bit, and then at the end that's layered with the other stuff, but it's kind of like a very textural, like weirdly metallic sounding bass. So yeah, I made that one from scratch. You can kind of see there's a lot going on there, but it's a bunch of different waves interacting with each other, modulating each other. FMAte's fun if you ever get the chance to use frequency modulation synthesis. It's a rabbit hole, but it's fun. And yeah, so what else have we got in terms of bass? While I'm here, we've got sub bass, which is actually just a sample. Again, a sample I created earlier. Anything that says like freeze in the clip title, that means I like have made it and then re-exported it. So it's basically just your standard like distorted 808 type kick bass thing. Nothing special there. And there's actually no processing here on the channel because I've already done the processing before I bounced it out. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot of sampling and resampling and stuff. But nothing fancy there. And then it's kind of, again, about how you layer it up. So that's my bottom sub layer. And on top, we got the FM8 thing. And this thing called reso bass, which is, reso just means like resonance. So I don't even need to unfreeze that, I don't think, unless you want me to. But it's just like a very sharp resonant filter sweep down a like very simple saw waveform with a little tiny bit of compression and EQ. And that's just to sit on top of the sub to give it a little bit more texture. So that's the end section, and the rest of the song just uses just the sub layer, basically. Oh, and another little stabs of reso bass here. Okay, what are people saying? Sorry, I'm gonna try and keep up with what everyone's asking. Is that a glass break? Is that glass break a sample, or is that also synthesized? I don't think I used any glass break samples in this song, so it's probably something else or something I synthesized. Thanks for everyone for the new follows. There's too many to list, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for following. Really appreciate it. We got 91 people viewing. That's awesome. Lucky Mac asks, what's the first thing you work on when starting a new song? Well, it's kind of different every time. Like I was explaining before, like in this case, I was trying to make a Hudmo kick. So it was like a sonic concept or like something that I was really trying hard to like replicate, I guess. But it really is different every time. It's usually a sonic concept. Like I want to create a sound that sounds like this, or I want to know how someone created a sound like that. And then through that experimentation of trying to figure out how the sound was created, I'll generally, like a musical idea will emerge. That's kind of generally how it starts, but there's no rules with that stuff. Windy with Showers says, when you played the track through in its entirety at the start of the stream, it sounded so good on my on your MacBook Pro, the best it's ever sounded to me. Is that because YouTube and Spotify compress the file so much? Maybe. It's also because MacBook Pro speakers are probably a bit brighter and a bit more exciting, but it's actually mainly probably because this mix is a bit more dynamic, because this is not actually the final mix. Because like I said before, I got this professionally mixed and mastered. So you're hearing the final production, but it's not the final mix, if that makes sense. It's still a pretty good mix, and it's a bit more dynamic and less like beefy and a bit less loud and compressed. But it's, yeah, so it might just be a slightly different mix to what you're used to hearing, which makes it sound a bit fresh. Private Buns, thank you for the follow. Yeah. Okay, cool. Do you ever use Operator? Yeah, I use Operator a lot. I use it for basic stuff. It's got really good like white noise. Again, like FM stuff. It's really cool. NIMBY Music asks, can you show how you EQ the bass? Well, in this case, I can't really, because like I said, the main bass sound was already processed before I put it in here. But I will do future videos explaining in detail more about how I do, I guess, like drum production, bass production, that kind of thing. If that's what you are interested in, I will definitely do that. But unfortunately in this song, what you see is what you get in terms of like, these are the bass layers. You can see there's a little, like I did quite a steep cutoff on like the top layers of the bass just to make sure there's room for the sub, and that's all like standard stuff. And any bass that has stereo information, I use a mid-side EQ, which is what you see here with the yellow line. That's just cutting out the side information. So anything that's on the left and right speaker, not down the middle, that will get cut off, because you don't really want your basses to be too stereo, because then they can interact with the other stuff that should be sitting in the stereo field. So that's some basic EQ stuff, but yeah, we can go a lot more in depth. Cool. Let's keep, there's a lot of other questions which I think I'll try and cover as I go. Sweet. Let's do it. Thanks for all the lovely messages and follows, everyone. Loons, thank you for the follow. You guys are so sweet. Yeah, we shall continue. I guess let's go now to the guitar part.
Emphatic, don't panic. Automatic.
So yeah, there's the guitar solo. That's probably my favorite part of the song. It's really fun to play live too. So the guitars are actually really simple. Again, what I like, my mantra with music stuff is generally like complexity through simplicity. So it's a lot of simple sounds coming together to create something a lot more complicated, a lot more complex, and a lot more exciting. So this is really just 2 guitar layers layered on top of each other, panned left and right. And each guitar layer is running through like a VST amp simulator and a channel strip processor and an EQ. And then that's it. So let's have a listen to just the guitars. So I played that, I think it was on either my Telly or my Strat, one of those. And I think I did use a few pedals too. So I was running my guitar into my computer with pedals as well. So I have a bunch of distortion pedals and overdrives and stuff that I use to sort of, please unfreeze the guitar section. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll show you the amp sims and stuff. Unfreeze. Yeah, so I was using pedals, running analog pedals into the thing, and then I was using, instead of an amp, because I don't actually have a physical amp in my studio, I was using amp simulators. I now have a Kemper, which I use instead, but at the time I was using this software called Bias Effects, which is really, really, really cool software. It literally just sounds like real guitar amps. It's amazing. And so this is what it looks like. What's the purpose of the channel strip? The channel strip is just to help keep the mix under control. So I'll show you more in depth what's inside the channel strip in a second, but it's basically just EQ and compression and stuff to keep things under control without having to do it all in separate plugins. And it also emulates kind of a little bit of what you might expect from an analog or, old circuitry that you don't find so much in digital hardware. So yeah, it's just a way of mixing. It's literally just a way of affecting the sound and making it fit better in your mix. I'm waking you want to play guitar again. That's good. That's what I want to do. Guitar is so much fun. I'm obsessed with buying pedals at the moment. I can't get enough. So yeah. So we've got here is the guitar amp sim. Let's see which are we on the left channel right now. So yeah, we've got 2 layers left and right. That's how you get the wideness, because that's just the best way to do that. I just played the solo twice and got 2 takes of it and just put it left and right. So we've got, all your standard guitar stuff. So I've got anything that's grayed out here, that's actually not being used. So this is a really simple setup. We've got a noise gate just to cut out any of the noise from the pedals and all that going in. We've got it running through what they call in the software, it's called an RC120. It's actually just a Roland JC120 replica. So it's meant to sound like a Roland Jazz Chorus amp, the classic clean amp. And then just an EQ pedal after, giving a bit of highs, and then into the speaker. And then it lets you pick microphone placements and stuff. So I've got 2 microphones placed at the speaker cones here, which allows you to sort of adjust how it's a virtual mix room kind of. And yeah, I've just got that replicated twice on each channel. So together they sound like this. And then someone asked about the channel strip. In this case, I usually use an SSL type channel strip from Waves, but this one is the Sheps Omni channel, and it's kind of a more modernized version of a channel strip. So we've got a preamp, a gate, an EQ, a de-esser, and a compressor. And I'm using all of them. You don't have to use all of them, but I am. So this just gives you basic filters and saturation if you want it. A gate is just a gate. EQ, it's a nice sort of musical sounding EQ, and it lets you sort of it just lets you shape the tone of the sound. And I mean, I could show you before and after. Without the EQ, it's just a lot more harsh, and I've like pulled out some of the harsh mids and stuff like that, and boosted the highs and cut the lows out and all that kind of stuff. The de-esser is just catching the really harsh frequencies, and then just a little bit of analog style compression. So this lets you do like FET style, which is basically replicating hardware compression. So it's a bit slower and a bit more natural sounding. So I've done that on the there. So yeah, that's my mix for the guitar, followed by a tiny bit of EQ, just boosting the highs and cutting some mids. And yeah. Could you please play the raw signal of the guitar? Sure, it won't sound very good, but I certainly can. I'll just turn everything off. What does it sound like? It'll probably sound like it's a distorted mess. Yeah. So what you're hearing there is my raw guitar going through overdrive pedals into my sound card. So it's not being affected by any like amplification other than the pedals. So it just sounds pretty like just messy, and it sounds way better when you run it through what guitars are traditionally processed with. What model sound card audio interface do you use? Marble Room asks. At the moment, I'm using the Focusrite Claret 4 Pre, which is really good actually. It's got great, really like nice sounding preamps. Gives me all the control I need. Yeah, and I have a pretty small setup because it's just me in here, so I don't need a huge number of ins and outs. So yeah, I always love the Focusrite stuff. Yes, will I upload this in post? I'll leave the VOD up on Twitch for sure. It'll only be up there for 14 days, but I'm gonna I guess I'll archive this somehow. I'm gonna keep track of all the streams and videos that I'm doing, so I'll figure out a way to archive it. But yeah, it'll be up here for 2 weeks at least. Or should do anyway. And later in the song there is some more guitar too. So I kind of, what I did, that's the solo sound. And then here I've chopped it up. So I've just taken the same solo takes and just because there's vocals happening here too, so I didn't want the guitar to interfere. Something's happened. Well, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to, I'll show you the end. Oh, damn. Can I show the drums next? Sure can. Amen. Sometimes you got to play this shit out live, then programmed. Amen. That's the truth. A combo of the two is a winning combo. So here we go. At the end, there's some more guitar stuff, which is very backgroundy, so you don't really notice it, but it just adds texture. Let's have a listen. Oh, it's only here. Yeah. So it's essentially the very similar sound. I probably changed a few settings on the pedals and the guitar just to make it sit differently, but yeah, very similar sort of distorted tone, a bit quieter, buried, less brash. But yeah, similar production style. It looks like I've even auto-tuned it, which is interesting. I auto-tuned it before it went into the amp sim, I think, probably because my guitar was slightly out of tune without realizing. I will, yeah, let's look at the drums. People want to know about the drums. And just to preface this, like I said earlier, I make drums separately. So a lot of the time I will make drums on a different day in a different project, and I'll just save them as samples, just creating my own samples kind of thing. I don't do that a lot, but I have like a collection of samples that I use, and or I'll even just make it like purpose built for whatever song I'm working on, and then I'll bounce it down. So because like the way that I design drums, there's a lot of post processing and a lot of layering, and for it just makes more sense once I've found the drum sound that I like to bounce it down to a file and just use that as a sample, because like there's no point in me like making my computer like do all this reprocessing every time it wants to play a drum hit. So just for the sake of like simplicity and to not kill my CPU, I like bounce my samples down most of the time. So that's kind of what I've got here. I've got a lot of samples that I either did earlier or I did purposefully for the song, and then I've like consolidated. But that being said, there's still a lot that I can show you here. And yes, I'll do the vocals after this. So let's have a listen. I got a few different drum sounds, so there's quite a lot going on here in the drum group. But it does make sense. And the cool part is at the end when we've got the real drum kit, which I'll get to in a moment. But yeah, the main drums sound like this. So yeah, like nothing crazy, some simple Cosmo the God, thank you very much for the follow. So I've got obviously a kick and a snare. That's my kick. This is, my snares are a little bit more complicated because there's a few different layers. So that's like the snare that you hear most of the way through the song. And it's actually 2 snares layered. So we've got this one and this one. So this, I call this the wavy Sophie snare only because it's influenced by the production style of Sophie. If you're not familiar with Sophie, go check out her music. Very amazing producer. She actually has a sample pack on Splice, and you can actually get it. And I have it, but this is not from that. This is something I made myself. And yeah, it's like a very like metallic sounding, like high pitched, just snare sound. So I think I made that using just a combo of like a very short sine wave blip, some white noise, a bunch of EQ, and then I have Corpus on it. So Corpus is Ableton's like, I guess you'd call it like physical modeling resonator effect. So you can set like what, like it adds resonances to a sound to make it sound like a particular material or object. So it's actually amazing and very underrated. But in this, I've just got it helping add a little bit of like shiny high end to that sound. Do I use Corpus much? I use it like fairly frequently, but it can be a little bit like too much sometimes. I use it sparingly because the effect can be very like bright and very a lot. So yeah, the little whoa whoa riff is so catchy in the intro. Thank you very much. That's my vocal. By the way, I don't know if you guys know this, all the vocals in this song are performed by me. And I can show you how I got it to sound the way I did when I go to the vocal section. Thank you everyone for following. Nick Trisp, thank you so much for the follow. Yeah, and then so this is my other snare. Again, I made this snare prior to this project, but it's just a very simple, like let's play it dry. I'll turn all this off. It's like a sucky sort of dance music snare. It's got like a sine wave body and then a bunch of like filtered white noise on top. And I just bounced it down with a bunch of compression and whatever on it. And then here I've added some reverb to give it a bit of room. So the way I do my reverb and stuff is I'll make an effect group. So here I've got a rack. And I've got a dry chain, which is just sending my normal dry snare through without anything, except here I've added a tiny bit of EQ. And then I've got a reverb chain, which is fully reverb. So that's the dry, that's the reverb. And then together, you have a mix of the two. It's pretty good. So then my reverb chain here is just like EQ'd all the lows and some of the highs. Very simple, like reverb. I've gated the tail of the reverb because I don't want it to ring out too much. And then just follow that whole thing with some subtle EQ stuff and some more automated EQ, looks like. Did I tune the Corpus? In this case, I don't know if I did, but I usually would yes, do that. Especially if I'm doing like a melodic thing, I'd tune it and try to make it like, even if I'm using inharmonic tuning, I'd try to still make it fit harmonically with the song that I'm making. But yeah, in this case, because it's percussion, I don't know if I did. What settings have you got on the Valhalla delay send? Yeah, I'm going to go over the sends and all that stuff as well. Thank you for reminding me. I'll cover that as well. Why do I stack 3 EQ8s? The reason I stack EQs instead of doing it all in one go is just because I can't be I'll have an idea for how I want to shape the sound, and I'll just whack a new EQ on there instead of going back to the old one. Just for me, the workflow is a bit easier. And it also means that if I change my mind later, I just get rid of that EQ or turn off that EQ rather than having to go in and switch off the specific bands or the specific automating things. It's just easier for me to use different devices rather than parameters within devices, if that makes sense. So next, that was the snare. That's some of the snare. And then obviously, because those are two different sounds, we've got them layered together in this main snare group, which sounds like that. So that's the both of them combined. And which has just got a bunch of mixing effects on it too. So the only really notable thing here would be the neutron doing a little bit of dynamic EQ and compression, and then K-clip, which is a really cool clipper. So it's like a very clean, hard clipper. You can see it's clipping about 5 or 6 dB of gain. And it does it very transparently. So it just is really good for gain staging and headroom. Like, it lets you keep your dynamics under control. So that's the main sort of electronic snare sound. There's also layered with that an acoustic snare, which is literally just a sample of a Ludwig literal snare drum that I found somewhere. Again, this has got some corpus on it, adding a little bit of metallic plate sound, EQ, compression, again, channel strip. So this, this is not a channel strip. This is like a 1073 EQ emulation. So that's like analog hardware emulation. It's just a very simple, very musical sounding, nice EQ with a bit of preamp saturation. What's the name of the plugin? Which plugin are you referring to, Doxy? Rejector Man says, I'm glad I'm not the only one who EQs like that. No, you're not. I think a lot of people do, because we have the technology. We don't need to use just one EQ. We can use as many as we like. Why isn't this song using the auto setting on the compressor? Because I like to have too much control, and I will never let someone, even a compressor, take control of my sound design. So there's a cool acoustic sound of a snare. So I mean, conceptually, you kind of get the idea. We've got electronic snare drums layered with real sounding snare drums, and that kind of hints at what happens later in the song when the full drum kit comes in. So there's kind of a bit of a conceptual and stylistic choice there being made. So that's kind of what it sounds like all together. And then all of those snare groups are combining into this main snares group with a bit of compression and gain on it, just to glue it all together to be like one sound. What's the name of the clipper plugin? The clipper is called K-clip by Kazrog. It's called K-clip. Where is it? Here it is, K-clip. That's what it looks like. And then so that covers kind of the snares. There's also the snare rolls, which are a different kind of sound. So that's more like a 808 type snare fill roll thing, which is more just to provide a bit of color and flavor in between other bits. And there's a lot of automation going on there too, like pitch automation and stuff like that. So together, here's what all the drums are. So we've got 4 different hi-hat layers down here as well. Before I get into that, actually I didn't show you the kick, did I? The kick is just very simple. Kick 2 is a plugin I use a lot. It lets you design kicks synthetically, so it lets you have full control over the pitch envelopes of like slow sub sound sine waves, and then it lets you also layer like click textures on top, and then it gives you like EQ and saturation control and all that kind of cool stuff. And it's very simple. I've just basically made a thud here with that, EQ'd the thud, and then on top of that I've got like a noise click coming out of operator. So operator's just playing white noise, heavily filtered, and that's just sitting on top of the thud to sound like this. But then of course I have it running through all your like classic kick compression techniques like saturation, multiband dynamics, compression, EQ, limiting, all the fun stuff, and again K-clip. So yeah, you know, it's all about the layering and then sort of combining the layers and all that kind of stuff. Whoa, what are people saying? Do you throw analog emulation compression on most of your drums, or is it all digital for you? I use a lot of analog emulation now, especially now more than ever, because it gives a flavor and an unpredictable character that is quite endearing, and it also just does stuff that's very difficult to achieve purely digitally. So I use it quite a lot. Is the reason you use MIDI for drums sometimes just for pitching and fill reasons? Yeah, it really depends on what I'm trying to do with the drums. So sometimes I'll have it racked in like a drum rack, so I have easier control of like transposition modulation or whatever it might be. And sometimes it's easier to work with a sample because I can just control the audio clip directly. It really depends on the purpose of the sound. The threshold on your compressors seems really low. Do you always do compression like that? Different for every instance. I like to be subtle with it, and then I'll do like very subtle amounts of compression one after the other. So each compressor is doing a different amount of compression, but then it adds up to be like the right amount, but each compressor is set differently so that it's like it only does a specific thing. So like maybe I want one compressor to clip all the like really sharp peaks, and then I want one compressor to even out the whole thing. And they're two different tasks that a compressor can do, but I'll do them like I'll use one for each task, and then they'll do each task better rather than relying on just one compressor to do the whole thing. How do you bus your drums? Is a kick drum bus going into the full drum bus? Yeah, so I can't actually remember. I've got main drums. In this instance, I didn't do the full mix, so I think I unbussed a lot of stuff, but like you can see here there's a kick bus, which is combining the kick layers, and then there's a snare bus, which is combining the snare layers, and then there's and they're all being combined into another group, but the group in this project doesn't have any processing on it because I ended up getting it sent off for mixing, so I wanted to be able to have the drum layers separated for the mix engineer, if that makes sense. But yeah, drum busing is fantastic, and I do it, and that methodology is something I use all the time. On the topic of analog and such, which hardware synthesizers are in your songs? I have a Moog Sub 37 and a Korg Minilog, which are the only two actual analog synths I have. I have a bunch of other like digital ones, and I love like the Arturia plugin suite, which really well emulates all the analog classics as well. Alright, there's a lot of questions. I'm going to have to skip over some of them because I want to show people what they asked for, like the vocals and the sends and returns and all kind of stuff. So I'm just going to power through. Thank you for everyone for all the new follows. There's quite a few of you, so greatly appreciated. Let's carry on. So I did these snare rolls here, and they kind of just continue through the song with a bunch of different automations and variations. So here are our hi-hats. Let's highlight all the hi-hats. Oh wait, I forgot one thing. My bad, we've got this as well. And that is a sound I made using FM8. Literally just a sample that has nothing on it, basically. A sound that I made ages ago, which I really love. It's made using FM8, which I was talking about earlier. Just a cool metallic sounding hit which I use in a lot of songs. Feel free to rip it at low bit rate that Twitch can give you and use it in your songs if you like. I'm kidding. Make it yourself. Make it yourself. FM8 is great for making stuff. Anyway, moving on. We got hi-hats. Let's have a listen. Let's go back here. So you can kind of hear each hi-hat layer is placed in the stereo field a bit differently. So we've got 2 real hi-hats and then an electric hi-hat or electronic hi-hat and an open hi-hat. So let's go through each of them. The simple electronic hi-hat just sounds like this. It's just a sample. Again, this is a sample I would have created earlier. I've chucked it into a sampler thing and then just like processed it with a bit of EQ. Oh, the corpus is actually doing quite a lot here. So corpus is what's making it sound metallic ringy. That's without the corpus. And that's with the corpus. Here's the next hi-hat. So this is just a more like classic sounding hi-hat sound. Nothing crazy. I think this is one of the ones from the Boy Wonder, one of the Boy Wonder kits. What's next? Another one. This is another variation of the same thing. But each of the hi-hats is playing different at different times. So it's creating kind of a swirling, there's a lot of detail when that all comes together. And the open hi-hat is another Boy Wonder one with a bit of EQ. And that's quite literally all it is. So when you combine all those simple sounds together, and then with everything else, that's how it sounds. No More Articles asks, do you design your own hats? I do, and one of the ones I showed you just then was one that I designed, but I also just sometimes just use existing hats as well. Depends on the context. Voltaire Core asks, one thing you've always done that I loved was had complex arpeggios. Do you key in the MIDI yourself or use an arpeggiator? Generally an arpeggiator. I use the Ableton arpeggiator and then I'll set it to however I want it set. You can record the MIDI out, which I have done. I don't really do that very often, but yeah, I use the arpeggiator. It's great. Gives you a lot of good control if you need it. Okay, after the hi-hats. The hi-hats are not grouped, they're just sitting separately here. And then we've got a piatti cymbal, which is like a very sort of orchestral sounding cymbal. Gives it a little splash of color. Layered with a more traditional sounding crash. This is literally just like an Ableton stock crash. I love it though. It's awesome. I use it all the time. This one, Crash Bright Room 16, whatever it is. It's good for layering with other stuff too. It just gives that really like bright, thick sort of cymbal sound. Next up, we've got Scrapey Perk. What's that? Ah, yes. Lightning Bird, thank you for the follow. Mish K, thank you for the follow. Tomogachu, thank you for the follow. Loon Sound, thank you for the follow. There's a lot of you. That sound is, again, we're using FM and we're using Corpus. So here, what have we got? Let's switch off the Corpus. Yeah, so that's a very simple, like, I guess I was trying to make a shaker sound using white noise. So Operator lets you has really clean white noise. And I've made a shakery sort of sound there just by doing some automation on the amplitude and the filter. Yeah, so there's a bandpass filter, and that's kind of making it sound like a bit of like an 808 shaker kind of thing. And then I've added the Corpus, which is giving it that metallic resonance. Apollo 64 official, thank you for the follow. So that's that. And that just kind of, that really just sits in the background as like a complementary.
Automatic, yeah. Automatic.
You can kind of barely hear it in the mix, but it just adds another layer of texture. Here we have the DR660 perk. Now this is a go-to for me. God, you guys are learning all the secrets today. The DR660 is a sample I use a lot. Well, I use that one. That's actually not the one I was thinking of, but it is one that I use a lot. The DR660 is an old drum machine, which I use samples of quite often. Let me find it. Yeah, it's the Boss DR660. It's just got like a bunch of really cool sounding, I guess 80s sounding drum samples. It's awesome. It's just like, I just have an affinity for that particular pack. And there's like some signature sounds of mine which you can hear in there, in that pack if you ever get it. This is one of them, but I've repitched it a lot here as well. Yeah, that percussion, I use that as just like another little sort of... Loon sound. Yeah, the Lin samples are great too, but the bosses, I just love. Hey, Roland makes some amazing stuff. Sorry if I've missed your question. Feel free to ask it again and I'll try to get to it. Shia9, thank you. You just can't get enough of the song. Every time I play a snippet, makes me want to go listen. Oh, well, you know, you don't have to go. I'm playing it for you right now. But thank you. Go stream it after this. Give me some royalties. Appreciate it. What do we got next? Okay, so that's kind of all the main drums that you hear throughout the main body of the song. I have a separate group here which is just for the end, because obviously there's the big end section which goes crazy. And I've used a separate group of drums for that just because it needed to sound a little extra, or a little like I needed to adjust the sound. So I just created a whole new group for that. A lot of them are the exact same. So the kicks are the same. You can see I've just duplicated the kicks and the snares. I've definitely programmed them differently, but there's a bunch of other stuff which you haven't seen. So there's that, which is another custom sample that I made. I synthesized that using like, I guess, white noise and like reverb and compression, and I just exported it. And yeah, that's a cool sound. I use that on top of the other snares. So we got, like when they combine, you get that really big impact of the main snare, and then like the tail and like body of this big, kind of just sounds explosive, which is fun. And then again, we got the Piatis, more cymbals going on here because we got the craziness. These snare rolls at the end are a bit more lively as well. A lot more automation. Does most of your drum synthesis, aside from the FM8 sample, happen in Serum? Some of it does, but I also use Kick 2 a lot. And I don't just use it for kick drums. I use it for snares as well. You can use Kick 2 for any sort of sine wave-based modulation or enveloping stuff. So you can make snares in Kick 2, and you can do all kinds of fun stuff. And sometimes I'll just use like operator or whatever I need. You can kind of, the idea of my methodology is that I can use anything and sort of still get something usable out of it. Like I want to make it so that it doesn't matter what gear I have access to, but I can still create using it. Because I don't think we should be reliant so much on what we have, but it should be more about how we use what we have. So there's some cool like panning automation and a bunch of pitch automation. Like that's really cool, that moment there. It's like a huge like pitch sweep on the transposition of the snare sample there. And I've done some pretty clever stuff. I've got Serum effects, and it's receiving MIDI. So this is, I don't know if you're familiar, but Serum, everyone who owns Serum has access to this other plugin called Serum Effects, which is just the effects units of Serum, and you can use it on audio tracks, which is really cool. And you can actually send MIDI to it if you want to use the envelopes, which I have done here. So I've got a channel here this external instrument. It's sending MIDI to this Serum effects unit, and it is then triggering envelopes every time the MIDI plays. So every time the snare plays, it's sending MIDI to here, and that is triggering this envelope, which is then mapped to control the delay times of the chorus effect, if that makes sense. So it's subtle, but it adds like this width and movement that you wouldn't have without it, which is quite nice. And it's cool that Serum Effects lets you do that. So thank you, Serum Effects. It's cool to be able to do that stuff. And here is the showstopper, the real drum kit. Well, I say real. I've never actually played a drum kit to do this, but let's just hear it. Huge drums, and I'll get to how I did that in a moment. Tamagotchi asks, could you accomplish similar results with a different chorus, or is Serum Effects better in any particular aspect? The reason I use Serum Effects is because it lets you send the MIDI to it, which a lot of chorus effects would not let you do. You need to be able to have the modulation being controlled by MIDI, which Serum Effects is, I'm pretty sure that's the only effect I have which lets you send MIDI to control effects parameters, as in like MIDI triggers. So yeah, and it's plus if you have Serum, it's free anyway, and it's really good. I love the sound of the chorus in Serum anyway, so it's really cool to have. Yeah, so here's the end drums, and to do this, I used a lovely piece of software called Superior Drummer 3. Here it is in all its glory. It's beautiful. There it is. Yeah, pretty intense stuff. So obviously Superior Drummer 3 is a drum sample library and drum software, I guess. And it lets you, it's been like beautifully, painstakingly recorded in like the best room ever. And it's got all these different drum sounds, like every sound you could change to like all these different snares, all these different kicks, and they're all like real amazing high quality drums. Yeah, and not only that, but then it lets you go to your mixer section and you can then route each of the microphones that we'll use to record these drums. You can then separate them. So I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail because I could talk about how I did this for like literally hours, but what I've got here in Ableton is I've got my group called Real Drum Kit. You can see that there. On this channel here, I have my Superior Drummer plugin, which is here, and that's where all the sounds are coming from. Then I've separated all the sounds from Superior Drummer into these tracks. So kick, snare, hi-hat, toms, overheads, and ambience. Now what this is, these are groups of the microphone channels that have been used to record the drum software samples. So if I just, it's cool to be able to separate them and then use them in Ableton. You know what I mean? So, I don't have to just treat this as one sound. I can then treat the snare and the hi-hat and the kick all as different sounds and then process them and then regroup them again later. So that's an amazing amount of control, and that's why I love this software. It's quite complicated and it takes a long time to like make it sound good because there's just so much you can do. But you can see here's my drum mixer. So I've got all the different, so this is like 3 microphones just for the kick, 2 microphones just for the snare, hi-hat, toms, overheads, and then like room mics as well. And I've mixed them according to what I wanted to hear. I've then bussed them in the software. It lets you bus them. And then the buses are being sent out to Ableton, which is what I have here. So I've then processed these in Ableton as well. So that's the kick, snare. And you can like hear the grace notes, and you can like hear even like the bleed. So you can hear the bleed from the kick drum in the snare channel like you would in a real recording studio, which is so cool. And then the hi-hat. And then there's some toms later, but you can't hear them there. Overheads, like, so this is like, that's capturing the cymbals. And then that room mics. So that's each like section of the drum kit, right? And you can then, because I've got them separated, I've been able to EQ and mix them and compress them all separately here, which I've done. And then, of course, I've grouped them into a group and then treated the whole drum kit as one sound as well. So we've got a compressor, we've got a bunch of just compression and EQ and like decapitator, which is a really good like saturation, because it's quite a distorted, like, it's pretty like squashed, you know what I mean? Oh, I'm getting raided. Carter is raiding me. Thanks for the raid. This is my first ever raid. Wow. Thanks, Carter, and thank you for the follow as well. Thanks for all the new followers. But yeah, here we are. So we've got a bunch of compression, a bunch of EQ, a bunch of saturation on the drum kit. What do we got here? Some like parallel compression, EQ, compression, neutron. Like, I know I've kind of gone overboard, but this is a big moment in the song, and I needed to make sure that the drums and the backbone of this part was particularly brilliant. So yeah, there's a lot of intricacy that's gone into how these drums were programmed and mixed. But if you're interested in doing that, I would definitely get you to check out Superior Drummer 3, which allows you to have this like ridiculous amount of control. And don't forget that I've also layered these real drum kit with the electronic drums. Do you say pecan or pecan? I say pecan. So yeah, there's a lot of drums. What I haven't covered yet, the last thing that I haven't covered is the shakers, which is just like an extra percussion layer. So shakers, something like that. That's a meaty kick. Thank you. Watch the VOD back later to see more. So yeah, this is, I used a piece of software called Shimmer Shake Strike, which is a Contact library, and it's specifically for like handheld percussion, like tambourines, maracas, shakers, all that kind of cool stuff. And what I did is I've bounced them out to audio here, but the plugin, like, it just sounds, because I was using 3 different shaker sounds from the plugin, and I wanted to separate them so that I could mix them differently, because I couldn't mix them in the plugin. So I bounced each layer of percussion out to its own track here. So I've got a left shaker, which is just coming out the left. I've got a right shaker, which is a different shaker, and it's coming out the right. And then I've got a tambourine in the middle. Together they sound like this, and each of them has been EQ'd and panned appropriately. And what that does is it just like, it like adds an extra layer of brightness on top of the drums. So it without even realizing it, if you just add like high-end percussion, you're kind of adding like an elevation every time it comes in. So here's without the shakers. And I'll turn them on. So not only are they high-end and bright, but they're also wide. So you're getting all this like excitement in your ears, and you don't even know where it's coming from, but it's just those shakers. So that's another pro tip. Shakers are amazing. So that covers the entire drum section of the song. Did I miss anything? Wow, there's a lot of people watching and a lot of people chatting. Sorry if I've missed people. I just wanted to make sure I was giving you all the right details and all the right, covering everything you guys wanted to see. Oh, I haven't done the vocals yet. We've been going for 1 hour and 24 minutes. I guess we can go on a little bit longer. And I do want to show you guys the vocals and anything else that I've missed. This has been pretty comprehensive, but we are almost there. Cool. I mean, I got rated. You guys are watching it. You guys are chatting. We're powering through. I'm just going to have a quick sip of water because my mouth is dry. Marble Room asks, what is a raid? That's a good question. I have no idea. I think it means that someone sent their viewers over to me to watch me. That's why I got a big spike in viewers just then. Going to be doing more streams in the future? Absolutely, certainly. Please let me know what you'd like to see as well, because obviously I want to do stuff that you guys want to watch. Going to be... Oh, damn, there's a lot of questions. Okay. Which elements do you commonly utilize sidechain compression? Other than kick and bass? I mean, not kick and bass are kind of the main ones. But I'll sidechain anything that's in the way. You just use it as a mixing tool. So if there's something that you feel like is getting in the way of the groove or the kick or like anything, chuck a sidechain on it. No harm done, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Just play it. You can put it on anything. Put it on like chord pads. You can even do it on vocals if you want. Literally anything. Oh, but you're talking about like what are you sidechaining from? Oh, right. Okay. Oh, wait, no. I think I answered your question. Sorry, I got confused. Do I have any formal music training? Not really. I'm pretty much self-trained. I did go to music school for like a year, but I dropped out because I hated it. So yeah, more or less self-taught. When are new songs coming? Got lots coming this year. Lots. Okay, let's move on to the vocals. Unless I've missed anything that I need to answer. Hopefully I'll answer people's questions as we go. So keep sending them over. Yeah, covered the chords, I haven't covered the main ARP yet, so I'll do that too. So the ARP that you hear from the very beginning, this one. That's just an Omnisphere sound. Again, at the beginning of the stream, I covered some of the other Omnisphere sounds I was using. This is just like they've called it a owner guitarette sugar. So I guess it's someone plucking an old owner guitarette instrument with a sugar packet, and they've recorded that. Thanks, Omnisphere. It sounds cool. It's a little plucky sound. I liked the sound of it, so I did the little melody there, and then I just mixed it. So, I think I threw some effects on there too in Omnisphere. So it's got like some EQ and reverb and stuff. But yeah, thanks Omnisphere for the lovely little plucks. Panning is just like, I know that like there's different ways to do it, but kick and bass down the middle generally. Anything that's like big and loud and like rambunctious should probably just be mono in the middle, because if you go too far to the sides, that's going to sound weird. But you can be creative with it too. There's no rules with panning. I like to have high-end stuff panned a little bit so that you get the details in the sides, because that creates excitement and it sounds like it's coming from the edges rather than like straight down the middle. Vocals, can you talk about lyric writing? I sure can. I'll do that when I cover the vocals in a moment. Yeah, so let's keep going. So that's the main arpeggio thing. Yeah, let's move on to vocals. So we've got my vocal layers here. We've got the lead vocal channel, and we've got a background vocals group. So let's focus on... Let's do the backgrounds first, and then I'll lead into when the lead starts. So the background vocals from the start of the song. So it's got like the whoas and all that kind of stuff. So, and like the ad libs, like the yeah, and like all that stuff. That's That's the whoa-ohs. So I did a bunch of processing and stuff to make it sound the way it sounds. I'll actually just unfreeze these. So those whoa-ohs, which you hear, so that's just me singing a whoa-oh. But I've got the... Oh wow, people are donating to me. That's awesome. $10 from Lewis Brady. Thank you so much. You guys are so generous and so kind. So, where were we? This is just me singing a whoa-oh, and then in auto-tune, which I have here, I've literally just increased the formant amount, and I've like hard tuned it to whatever it's meant to be, the key. It's in D flat major, for your information. So yeah, just some formant modulation and some hard tuning, and then here I've filtered out a lot of it and compressed a lot of it, and we've got like with the guitars, left and right panning, so 2 takes, one in the left, one in the right. Pretty basic stuff. I mean, it gets more complicated when we get to the lead vocal. I'll show you also. Oh no, I'll leave that for later because we can talk about how I did the lead first. All those like background sort of yeahs and stuff, a lot of them are like chopped out of the takes from the lead vocal. So what's next? We got some more whoa-ohs, I believe. How do you avoid phase issues when double tracking vocals? Phase issues is only usually a problem if you have exact duplicates of the audio. So if you're doing 2 takes of the same thing, the 2 recordings are going to be different, so you won't actually run into any phase issues. But when you're dealing with the same recording coming from 2 different places and they're slightly out of phase, that's an issue. But that's a separate issue. The weird, like the phasey, pitchy, chorusy effects from double tracking is kind of what makes it cool. That's why I like to do it. And you can also like pan the 2 takes and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of... Dylan Francis sucks. Thank you so much for the follow. Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't have phase issues when you're double tracking. Phase issues are more from like if you have 2 mics picking up the same signal and then the 2 signals are out of phase. But yeah, so here we've got a bunch of layers. We've got the background vocals high formant, and we've got the background vocals low formant. So formant refers to like the shape of the throat. So like low formant and like high formant, like chipmunky is like high, and then low is like low, you know? But I did some pretty tricky stuff here to make this work. So again, I mean, I put auto-tune on all my vocals just because I like the way it sounds and it's good for my pitchy vocal recordings. So the only thing that auto-tune doing here is just tuning it to the right key. Like as in like it's already in key, but it's tuning it more precisely. Pretty like fast. Will you be leaving the VOD up? Yes, I will. And I'm going to try and archive stuff in the future as well. It'll be up for 14 days on Twitch though. Yeah, so we've got, what I did is like I took the recording and I actually pitched it up. You can see here in the transpose, I pitched it up by 12, right? So that means that I recorded it an octave lower than what you're hearing. So the original, you can kind of hear it there. It's in the background. I was singing it like a whoa, and then it's pitched up an octave. But then in auto-tune later, oh wait, no, this technique comes back for the lead vocal, which I'll show you in a moment. And then for the low formants, I recorded this at the high octave that time, and then so like up in that high octave I recorded that one, and then here in auto-tune I put the formants. You can see the throat length and the formants are being shifted here. So basically the idea here is that we are like doing the vocal recordings and singing the same takes, but then each of the takes and the layers that I'm combining has a different tonal quality or a different texture. So whether it's me singing it at a different octave and then repitching it to match the octave that I sang before, or like using auto-tune to change the formants, it's about playing with the different textures that you can get from these different processing techniques. So that, especially when you're dealing with background vocals, and it doesn't matter if it's like super like muddy or like not as clear as the lead, like you can do some really cool textural layering there. So when you combine them, you get this weird like, it sounds like a group of children, but like each child is in a different location and they're a different age or something. People are asking what mic I used. For this particular song, I used my Rode K2, which is a tube condenser mic. Not the mic I'm talking into right now, but it's like a, Rode K2. It's a nice like tube condenser. Worth investing in a nice vocal mic if you want to record vocals. That being said, you can get good vocal mics for like a few $100, so don't stress too much about that. And then I guess the only other thing is the lead. So those wah-wahs are kind of just chopped up throughout the song, like where I thought they needed to go. Hello Prillian, welcome back to the stream. And yeah, so lead vocal. Here we go. Oh shit.
Yeah, supersonic feeling this. It's a hit reaction, makes you automatic. Break it out, make it count. Yeah, automatic, this is it. Benefit, hypersonic on the radio. Now the show, every day and you'll be automatic. Yeah.
Cool. So, you're asking, how did you make it sound like that? This is how I did it. I've discussed up and like with the background vocals, I told you how I was doing different repitching techniques using different things. So you can do it in auto-tune and you can change the formants or the pitch there, or you can do it in Ableton using the complex warp modes, and they each provide a different texture. Knowing that, you can then combine these textures to create something interesting. So let's have a look at how I did this. I actually can't remember, so this will be me rediscovering it with you guys. What I did is I recorded...
Counterfeit, make a hit, yeah.
I didn't actually sing those notes when I recorded the vocal. I actually sounded like... Actually, I'll just play it for you. I'll turn off all the effects. Delete that. Turn off all of this.
Counterfeit, make a hit, yeah. Automatic bass drum.
Sounds like trash, right? It's like me pitched up 7.
Counterfeit.
Sorry. This is what it sounded like originally. Counterfeit. So that's me just going like counterfeit into the mic, right? But then I've pitched the audio clips up using Ableton's Complex Pro algorithm, which is really cool for like repitching stuff, and I really like the way it sounds.
Counterfeit.
So that's pitched
make
up.
a hit, yeah. Automatic bass drum. This is fun.
It does sound like Technologic because they used a similar repitching technique, and I think they even used Ableton as well. And they would have done the similar thing, right? So that is how I got the initial like repitching, but then check this out. Let's put the auto-tune on, right?
Counterfeit, make a hit, yeah. Automatic bass drum. This is fun.
So what's going on here? I've selected one note in auto-tune. We've got the C sharp selected. So the only note that auto-tune is going to repitch my vocal to, and it's set to maximum, right? So any audio that comes in is going to be repitched to this note, C sharp.
Counterfeit, make a hit.
But the cool thing about that is I didn't actually sing notes.
Counterfeit, make.
That's just like spoken word, kind of like there's no actual pitch to those recordings. And they are pitched up, but that doesn't even matter. That's just more of a tonal quality thing. So auto-tune is then turning it into a melody.
Counterfeit, make a hit, yeah. Automatic bass drum.
And then I actually have Melodyne as well. So Melodyne, what that's doing is at the end of the song, or in this part.
Feel the heat. A million miles a second in the front seat. Automatic, telepathic, yeah, you better fight. do it right.
Oh, sorry, it's here. There's a bit of pitch stuff going on.
Automatic. Feel ecstatic, break the fabric. Automatic.
So that's kind of adding a little melodic content using Melodyne as well. So that's, you can kind of see how I've drawn in the melodies there. And then it was just a matter of EQing it,
Automatic.
cut out all the stupid low end,
Automatic.
compression,
Automatic.
multiband.
Feel ecstatic, break the
So I've done some pretty severe compression here because I've modulated the pitch and like the texture of it so much that it really needs to sort of, it needed to sound robotic to work. So I made it sound, I went overboard with how I processed it. And that was a deliberate choice as well.
automatic.
And that's doing quite a lot there.
Automatic. Feel ecstatic, break the fabric. Automatic. Make a habit, automatic.
Tyler Sauer, Wayne 36 and Adriana, thank you very much for the follows.
Automatic.
Yeah, and I'm pushing up the highs a lot and I'm getting rid of the lows a lot. Because I recorded it using like a normal vocal mic, but I'm trying to make it sound like a robotic synthesizer voice. So kind of
Automatic.
needed to do quite a lot. And then this limiter,
Automatic.
more compression.
Automatic. Feel the heat.
And I'll show you the effect sends in a moment too.
Feel the heat. A million miles a second in the front seat.
Bit of de-essing just to get the harsh frequencies out of the way. So this is actually an echo rack. So I've got a dry, this is another one of those racks that I was talking about before. So you got the effects chain and the dry chain. So here in the effects,
Feel the heat.
it's an echo.
A million miles a second in the front seat.
And this is Ableton's new echo effect, which is really cool. It emulates a tape echo, which means it actually lets you introduce like saturation and like impurities and stuff.
Feel the heat.
So you can hear it's distorted and it's wide because it's like a dual stereo tape echo thing.
Feel the heat.
And it's filtered,
Feel the heat.
but combined with the dry signal, it sounds like this.
Feel the heat. A million miles a second in the front seat.
So that's adding a subtle stereo dimension and also like a stereo distorted quality in the sides, which gives the sound even more like color.
Feel the heat. A million miles a second in the front seat. Automatic, telepathic, yeah, you bet.
So that's basically the lead vocal. Like I said, there's like at the start, it's all about how I repitched the audio itself, like the audio clips itself, before it even touched an actual effects unit. It was just Ableton's repitching algorithm, which gave it a lot of its character, and then followed by that was like all the tuning and all the effects and compression and all that kind of stuff. So that there's kind of two chapters to how that sound came together. And then we are sending the lead vocal to some delays and echoes and stuff. So
A million miles a second.
you can see I've drawn in the automation here for how it's being sent to the delay and the echo here. So
A million miles a second in the front seat.
you can hear the echo coming in on certain words. I just wanted it to come in on certain words. I didn't want it to be there the whole time. And the same with the delay. So there's two different types of delay. And someone asked before to show you my Valhalla delay thing. I've got it on the BBD mode, which is kind of like, BBD stands for Bucket Brigade Delay, which is a type of delay circuit that they like to use in like guitar pedals and things like that. So it kind of has like a very sort of gritty quality and very like lo-fi, which I really liked for this because I had more hi-fi stuff going on elsewhere and I wanted like a sort of warm low-end lo-fi texture here. So yeah, it's a subtle thing where it comes in at certain moments and it's very like dreamy lo-fi stuff. And some other things are being sent to the echoes and delays too, but
A million miles a second in the front seat.
or maybe it is just the vocals, I can't remember. I forgot to also mention I've got some delay and reverb set up for the guitars, but there's nothing really like fascinating about that. It's just some it's just to provide some space. It's just to give the guitars a little like make it sound like the guitars are in like a room or like a recording space rather than just like dry DI. So Brilliant. Thank you for letting me know that the streaming setup is much better today. I did put a lot of effort into improving it, so glad to hear it's working well. Valhalla has the best verbs and delays. I would agree. I think they do make some of the best stuff on the market, and I use their stuff very frequently. What's on the master when you're writing? Not much. Not much at all. I can show you now. It's literally just, this utility is just boosting the gain because I had my tracks set pretty low. Tiny bit of compression with a very low ratio just to make it subtly squash at parts. It's not doing much. And then here, Ozone, which I don't even usually have on all the time because it introduces quite a lot of latency, but sometimes I have it on just to like when I'm at the finishing stages. So I've got an EQ just cutting out any unnecessary low, boosting frequencies where the kick and the snare hit, and then always add a little bit of high shelf to bring up some air and brightness. And I think that's kind of it, really. Like, sometimes I use this, sometimes I don't. The imager is really cool. It lets you like multiband the different parts of the frequency spectrum into different parts. So like I want the low end to be a bit more mono and I want the high end to be a bit more stereo. So I kind of do that. And Ozone lets you do that really, really nicely. And I don't use the stereoize function because I don't want to add like artificial stereo. I just want to boost the side content that's already there or like decrease it. So that's what I'm doing. So, what do we got going on? Get your snack on. Hello. Thanks for joining. You're a mixing genius, apparently, according to Prillian. You like the mix down a lot, Konak. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Like I said earlier in the stream, I don't know if you were here, but this is my final mix, but it's not the final mix that you hear on Spotify and stuff, because I got it mixed professionally by my friend George, and then I had it mastered as well. So like the mix is good here, but it had a little extra final polish. And then I've just got a limiter, like right now I have it on the low latency limiter mode, just doing a little bit of squash because I don't want to like I'm going to get choppy audio if I have too much of like the high quality one on. Same music asks, how loud do you want the final to hit? I think less and less about loudness these days. I think it's less important, but I try to hit like, I don't know. I don't even know, to be honest, because I end up now getting it mastered professionally. Did I mix the other tracks I've done? Yes. So yeah, I mean, I don't really think too much about loudness. I like to have my bass hitting at about -6 dB. I can't, like, you can't really, actually, I just put the spectrum before. Yeah. Like, I always look at the bass frequencies, like where the kick and the bass hit, and I try to make it sit roughly between like -12 and -6 on the spectrum analyzer, because that seems to be a good level, and like that seems to be what most tracks I like have, just from referencing other tracks. Konak asks, do you hear a big difference in your personal masters and one done by a mastering engineer? I wouldn't say the difference is big, but I'd say it exists. There is a difference, and it is noticeable, mainly because they just have like analog gear that I don't have, or that I can't afford. So like I just pay them to have access to those things. It's better than like trying to replicate something. I mean, look, it's also nice to just have a second and third set of ears on a song. Like if my ears have been listening to a song 5,000 times while I'm making it, by the time it gets to the point of mixing and mastering the final, my ears are so exhausted and my brain is so biased that it's just better to have someone else approach it. And I found like that's even just from a purely psychological level rather than like a skill level. So yeah, who mastered it? This one was mastered by Barry Grint at Metropolis Mastering, but normally I use Matt Colton from Metropolis. But they had a fast turnaround, so we had to get Barry because Matt was away at the time. For sure, have I ever decided I like my own master better? Yes, but now that I've found the people that I like to work with, theirs are almost always perfect. But there was a time when I didn't have access to that, so I had other people doing stuff that I didn't like. So I think I've covered like more or less everything in this song. We have been going for like nearly 2 hours. So if there's anything that I've missed or anything that you specifically wanted to ask me, please do so. Like I said, I'm going to leave the VOD up. Obviously, it'll be up for 2 weeks on Twitch. And then after that, I'm going to try and archive stuff somehow. I'll have to figure that out in time. George from CK mixed it. Yes, that's right. That is right. I don't know how you knew that, but that's the truth. He's a good mixing engineer. He does a lot of my new stuff and a lot of stuff for like my friends as well. He's great. Really easy to work with, very professional. What monitoring headphones do I use? I use these ones, which are the Audio-Technica M50X. I've used them for like years. This is like my 5th pair. Been here for almost 2 hours. Yeah. How do I get into the zone? I have no idea. I wish I could tell you. I wish there was a method, but there just isn't. I'd be lying if I said I knew how to do that. No question, but my God, the last minute of this song always makes the hairs of my arms stand up. Oh, thank you. Well, let's have a listen to it, because I do like that part. Nah, I won't make you sit through it again. You can go listen on Spotify. Generally speaking, how do your tracks sound so bright? Oh, by the way, sorry if I've missed a lot of your chats, because there's just been, while I've been focusing on demonstrating the project, I probably missed quite a few messages. So if I miss something that you want me to answer, send it now, because I'm looking at the chat now. Generally speaking, how do your tracks sound so bright and crisp? I think it's all about the detail. So I'll use like little bits of stuff rather than do big moves. Like I said before, I'll use like 3 compressors in a row and 3 EQs in a row rather than one compressor doing a lot. Like 3 compressors doing a small amount of stuff rather than one compressor doing a lot. And that lets me have super like intricate control of stuff, right? So the more control I have, the more detail I can attach to the different moves I'm making. And the more sort of detail there is, you tend to get a more bright and crisp result. That's generally speaking. I mean, I could talk for hours about specifically how I do that, but that's the general answer. Makey Music, thank you for the follow, and South Hum, thank you for the follow, and 13 Lunts, and wow, sorry, there's a lot of follows. Sorry for missing those. Do I ever want to play in a band? I do actually play in a band for my live tour right now, which is cool. Well, the tour's not happening now. It was over New Year. I did Falls Festival and I had a 3-piece band. So yes, the answer to that is yes. How'd you end up finding someone you trust for your masters? Through, just trying different people, and also like just through experience of working with different labels, and they send stuff off. Like before when I was very starting out, I would just have labels who represent me just sending stuff off to people that they like. And then, just from the experience of like, I would always keep track of who was mixing and who was mastering and like where they were sending it and stuff. And like, I would just keep track of the results that I liked. And also just like knowing other people who get stuff. It's kind of word of mouth. Like if I have friends who make really good stuff and they trust someone for their mixes, it's like, okay, they're probably good enough to do mine as well. Can I do this with flash drive? I can if you want. It's not going to be as like interesting as this one because that's a lot older and I didn't know as much back then. But if you want me to do that, I certainly can. It won't be as in-depth as this and it won't be as interesting. But yes, if you want, I'll make that happen. How'd you go about writing lyrics for this track? Lyrics kind of just came... there is a lyrical concept to this song. It's like, it's about, how people who are in your life expect stuff from you and they don't necessarily realize that it's not as easy as what they think it might be. And so you're kind of just teetering on this anxious edge of like hoping that you can deliver what people want from you, but also struggling with the fact that it's difficult and they think it's not difficult. And like, also there's the idea of automatic being like automation and like, we're supposed to be super duper productive like a machine and all that kind of stuff. Take away from it what you will, but yeah, it has a meaning to it. And so I found lyrics, and I was just using rhyming structures, and I'll tend to like write a sort of rhythmic idea and a melodic idea first. Like, and I'll have like the musical part of it, and I'll be like, okay, I like how that sounds when I sing gibberish in that rhythm, and then I'll try to attach words to it after. Because it's about like it needs to be catchy first, and then the lyrics need to sort of what's the word, like work with that musical idea. Can you dissect some of your older tracks in future streams? Yes. Is it going to be on demand? I missed almost everything. Yep, I'm going to have the VOD saved to my channel, so check it out as soon as it's done. Favorite mic and dream mic? I love this mic I'm using right now, the SM7B, and my other favorite vocal mic is the other one I have, which is the Rode K2. But I'd love some more fancy, expensive ones too. I'm going to have to go soon, guys, by the way, but I'll try and answer the rest of these questions now. You want me to do intro on streamers? All right. What are 3 artists that you would say inspire your sound? At the moment, I'd say the 1975, Japanese House, Clairo. You're front and center at Falls Byron. Thank you so much, man. Oh, you saw the live show. That's awesome. I'm glad you liked it. It was really fun. Will you be performing in America sometime in the future? Well, will anyone be performing in America sometime in the future? That's the real question. Hopefully. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. But yes, that is like a priority. Dream collab? I don't know. Would you stream yourself making a track from scratch? I have thought about that. I just work very slow, so it would be like 8 hours of me trying to like make something sound good. So it would be boring for like 90% of it, you know? I don't know how to make it interesting because that's not my workflow. I tend to be very like intricate and very detailed, and I don't think that's necessarily interesting viewing. But if there's a way to make it interesting, or if there's some sort of like challenge or like engaging aspect I can attach to it, I'll definitely give it a go. Flash drive breakdown would be amazing. All right, it seems like a lot of people want me to do flash drive, so I can make that the next one if you want. More breakdowns. Yeah, I can do more of these. Could you do fresh hex? Oh, I'd have to ask him. He actually lives in this building. Some insider info. He lives 3 stories above me, so I could get him down here if you want. Do I perm, or are those angelic curls all natty? They're all natty, baby. All natty. All natty. Live UFC fights behind you producing. Yeah, fair enough. We need the haircut breakdown. Yeah, that's next. That's on the agenda, the haircut breakdown. Give us some secret sauce preview just before you bounce. That's not a bad idea, although my label might not be happy about that. How long did it take to compose this song? Quite a while. It went through quite a few different iterations. You can see at the top of the thing. Sorry, I should probably switch to my thing. It says V17. So this is the 17th rendition of the song. I'm actually going to switch to my webcam now. So yeah, like it came together over a series of, I guess, months. Yeah, and it evolved over time. Like it started without vocals, and then I added vocals, and then I added a second verse right before I released it, and then right before I released it again, I added the guitar solo. So it came together in chapters, and there were large gaps in between some of those chapters as well. So it's hard to say, but yeah, quite a while. No song comes together that, like, a lot of my songs take a long time to make. You should stream some more mixing session. Oh, you're talking to Get. Hello everyone for joining, by the way. I'm not sure, you guys are all chatting and I'm not sure who everyone is, but I want to just say thank you for tuning in. Get your snack on. Dylan Francis Sucks. Thanks for watching. Thanks for chatting. I'm going to have to end it here. We've been going for almost 2 hours. What made me choose auto for the first release, Breaking the Drought? It just seemed right. It seemed right stylistically. It seemed right conceptually. It was a song that I was very proud of. It had guitar. It had my vocal. It was like, I'm going to come out the gate with me doing me, you know? And it was 100% me. And that was mainly the reasoning behind it. Missed most of this, but what's the Hudmo kick in the file? Hudson Mohawk was not involved. It was me trying to be a Hudson Mohawk wannabe. Watch the VOD for the full breakdown. Cool. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I'm going to end it here. This was really fun, and I'm glad you guys all enjoyed it. I probably will do another one of these. There is a Discord server linked in the channel below. Anyone who wants to join that is welcome to. You can send me ideas. I literally only just started just started the Discord server, and I don't really know how to use it yet, but please join and help me out building that from the ground up if you like. And yeah, feel free to send me messages or whatever you'd like to see next. This is a great time, and while we're all quarantined and while the world is the way it is, I think it's a good idea for me to do more of these and try to expand upon it and just do more streaming in general, and more like not just breakdowns but other types of streams too. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time. You guys are the best. Thanks for tuning in. If I've forgotten anything, I'm very sorry. And if I missed your message or your chat, I'm very sorry. But I'll get to you next time. I'll let you know in advance again, hopefully next time this happens. But follow the Discord and follow me on all the social media platforms that are linked below to keep updated. That's where I'll be posting about it. So, yeah. All right. See you later. Bye.